My mother-in-law is a bad influence, Sophie said, tilting her phone just enough so I could see the photo she'd posted. A family picture I'd been in, now cropped tight so my shoulder was the only part left. A week later the Christmas card arrived. I wasn't in that one at all. She'd trimmed me out like an errant branch, trying to make the family tree look cleaner without me. I wasn't a bad influence. I wasn't done. She thought the picture was finished. But I was already adjusting the frame, one careful change at a time, until everyone could see the whole truth. If you like stories like this, please subscribe, like an open notification bell for more real-life grandma stories. I first met Sophie the summer my son brought her home from college. She wore a yellow sundress and carried herself like someone who'd always known where she belonged. I welcomed her with the same open arms I'd offered every guest in our house. A seat at my table, a plate with the biggest slice of pie and the first pour of iced tea. When they married, I was there from the invitations to the last dance. I hemmed her gown when the seamstress couldn't fit her in before the wedding. I sewed tiny glass beads along the veil because she wanted just a little sparkle. I stayed up late ironing table linens so her reception would look like a magazine spread. When the babies came, I was the one who drove across town in the middle of the night with soup, clean onesies, and a rocking chair I'd sanded myself. I watched cartoons on the floor while Sophie napped. I kept my mouth shut when she made choices different from mine, telling myself that love is letting someone else's way be right in their own home. I sent framed photos for birthdays, the kind with everyone smiling. I made scrapbooks with careful captions so the kids would have a record of their own beginnings. I thought that's what family did, kept the story whole. When Sophie started to pull away, I didn't see the scissors at first. She said she was busy, that the kids had school projects, that maybe I should take a little time for myself. Then the photos came and my place in them had been trimmed to nothing. I'd spent years stitching her into our family's fabric. She thought she could cut me out without the edges unraveling. The first time I noticed, it was subtle. A Facebook post of the kids' birthday party. I was standing behind the cake in the real moment, but in her cropped version, I'd been trimmed away so the candles floated in front of my granddaughter with nothing but air behind her. A month later, Sophie hosted Sunday dinner at their house. She asked me to grab the salad from the kitchen, just as her friend lined everyone up for a group shot. By the time I returned, they were laughing at the picture on her phone. She didn't offer to take another with me in it. Then came the holiday newsletter. She'd sent it to the whole extended family. Glossy paper, cheerful font, 4 full pages of their year in photos. There was my son, their children, Sophie's parents, even the neighbor who watered their plants when they went to the beach. Not one shot of me. When I offered to take the kids to the zoo for the afternoon, she said, "Oh, I don't want them picking up bad habits." I asked what she meant. She smiled in that way people do when they're about to say something cruel but want to wrap it in sugar. You know, how you let them have candy before dinner. And your opinions about people. At Easter, I wore the pastel scarf my granddaughter had once said made me look like a spring flower. Sophie asked me to take it off for the family portrait, so it wouldn't clash. I stood at the end of the row anyway, only to find later that the photo she printed had been cropped again, this time mid-torso, my smile cut clean out. The last straw wasn't a crop or a cut. It was at a school play. I arrived early and found a seat in the front row, saving one for Sophie while she parked the car. When she came in, she waved from the back and stayed there, later posting a photo captioned, "Our proud family," with herself, my son, and the kids in the shot. I was 5 feet away, invisible. She thought erasing me from pictures would make me disappear from the story. I started making a different kind of album, one with the whole truth. It happened at my grandson's 7th birthday party. Sophie had booked a professional photographer, someone with a camera so large it looked like it could capture the whole world. When the group shots began, I stood to the side waiting for her to call me over. She didn't. She arranged her parents in the center, my son on one side, the kids in front. I was close enough to hear her tell the photographer, "We want to keep it just immediate family." The words stung in a way even the cropping hadn't. I wasn't just being trimmed out after the fact. I was being told out loud and in front of strangers that I didn't belong in the frame at all. I caught my son's eye. He looked away. The photographer lifted the camera, smiled, and took the shot. Something shifted in me then. Not anger exactly, something quieter, colder. The same feeling I get when I know a storm is coming and I start moving plants inside. After cake, Sophie handed me her phone and asked me to take a few candid pictures of the kids. I smiled, nodded, and took them, framing the shots so beautifully that she clapped her hands in approval. She had no idea I was already thinking about a different kind of portrait. One no one could crop without changing the truth entirely. That night, I printed the picture she wouldn't let me in. I pinned it to my bulletin board and wrote one sentence underneath. This is not the whole story. She thought she had the power to decide what stayed in the frame. I decided I would change the entire picture. I didn't storm into their house or confront her at the next gathering. That's not how you change a picture. You change it by adding what's missing piece by piece until no one can see it any other way. I started with the photos I already had, boxes of them tucked in albums and drawers. Birthdays, picnics, Christmas mornings. I scanned each one, every face smiling, every arm around another, no one missing. Then I called people who'd been at those moments. Remember the 4th of July barbecue? I'd ask. Do you have any pictures from that day? Soon, my email filled with images Sophie couldn't control. Neighbors, cousins, old friends sending me shots where I was there front and center, part of the story because I had been part of the day. I talked to the kids too. Not about Sophie but about memories. Remember when we made the giant pancake that took up the whole skillet? I'd say. They'd laugh, eyes bright. I took their picture right then with me in it, holding the spatula like a trophy. I made a plan. It wasn't enough to collect the truth. I had to share it where no cropping could erase it. Family reunions, church bulletins, school yearbooks, local history newsletters. All of them love photos that tell the whole story. And the next time Sophie reached for her phone to frame me out, I'd already have a dozen other frames where I fit perfectly, backed by smiles that proved it. She tried to make me a shadow in the margins. I was quietly setting the stage to put myself back in the center, not just of the picture but of the family's memory. If you like stories like this, please subscribe, like an open notification bell for more real-life grandma stories. It started with the church bulletin board. Mrs. Keating, who ran the announcements, had a habit of taping up photos from recent events. I brought her a stack from the Easter potluck. Every table, every laugh, every child in pastel. She smiled at the variety. "Oh, these are perfect," she said and pinned them up. There I was in the middle of the egg hunt, kneeling to help my grandson crack open a stubborn shell. The next week I just happened to be around when Sophie stopped by the church to pick up the kids from choir. She glanced at the board, her eyes catching on the image before moving quickly away. I said nothing, but I caught the tiny purse of her lips. The seed was planted. From there I worked outward. I started volunteering at school events. Not the kind that got a mention in a casual text, but the ones that came with a photographer. The library fundraiser needed someone to run the bake sale table. I signed up. The spring fair wanted a chaperone for the photo booth. I was there with funny hats and wide smiles. Each time, the official photos landed in newsletters, on bulletin boards, and on the school's social media feed. In every one I was present, unmistakably part of the scene. Meanwhile I kept collecting. Cousins sent me summer snapshots from the lake. My sister mailed me a print from the kids' first Halloween. A neighbor emailed me the shots she'd taken at the block party. I scanned them all, built digital albums, and labeled each one with names, dates, and places. There was no bad influence in these moments, just love, laughter, and shared life. By midsummer, I had an idea for something bigger. The community center was celebrating its 50th anniversary and wanted a through-the-years photo display. I offered to help curate. I slipped in pictures from family birthdays, school events, and backyard gatherings, moments Sophie had tried to crop, alongside images of neighbors, friends, and celebrations from decades past. On opening night, people pointed and smiled, calling out memories. My son stood in front of one photo. Him as a boy on my lap, both of us covered in cake batter, and laughed. Sophie didn't say a word. Then came the family reunion in August, the first one in 3 years. I was on the planning committee. We rented a park pavilion, ordered matching t-shirts, and most importantly, hired a photographer who specialized in candid group shots. I made sure to mingle, to be where the laughter was, to hold hands with the kids when the big group picture came. The photographer snapped away, catching me in natural moments no one could claim were staged. When the reunion photos went out in the family email chain, the replies poured in. "These are wonderful. Look how the kids have grown. It's so good to see everyone together again." My face was there in nearly every frame, not because I forced it but because I had been in the heart of the day. Still, I wanted something that would last longer than a newsletter or a Facebook album. That's when I thought of the calendar. Every Christmas, Sophie sent out one with 12 photos of the kids, one for each month. I'd always received mine with a smile, even if the pictures never included me. This year I decided to make my own. I designed it carefully, using the best shots from the albums I'd built. Me and the kids painting birdhouses in April, planting tomatoes in June, bundled up with cocoa in December. Each month had a quote about family and memory, and every image showed the truth. I was part of their lives, part of their joy. I printed copies for the entire extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, and mailed them with a note, a little something to keep us all smiling through the year. By the time Sophie's calendar arrived in mailboxes, mine was already hanging in kitchens and offices, my face smiling back every month. I didn't have to say a word about hers. People could see the difference. At Thanksgiving, I brought my camera, but I didn't take many pictures. I didn't have to. The cousins had theirs, the kids were snapping selfies, and the moment Sophie handed her phone to someone for a group shot, half the room called, "Make sure you get everyone." She smiled tightly and shifted to let me in. For the first time in years, no one asked me to step aside. I knew then that the picture had already changed, not because I'd fought for a spot in hers, but because I'd created so many other frames where my presence was unquestionable. She could crop me out of one, but she couldn't erase the hundreds of others hanging on walls, pinned to boards, or printed in calendars that flipped forward month after month. The family story was visible again, and I was right where I'd always been, in the middle of it. If you like stories like this, please subscribe, like an open notification bell for more real-life grandma stories. It began with the calendar, and it never stopped being that simple. I mailed it the first week of December. 12 months, 12 true pictures. March was me on the floor, Jack scattered, my grandson laughing so hard he fell over. July was me and both kids on the Ferris wheel, our hair blown wild, the sky a bright bowl. November was pie on the counter and 2 small hands on mine, sugar dust on our sleeves. I didn't add captions that argued. I let the pictures speak for themselves. Aunt Marlene hung it by her stove. My sister hung it by her desk at the clinic. My son opened his at the kitchen table and went very quiet. Sophie looked once and then looked away, her fingers tight around her coffee. No one said a thing. That's how the first weight lands, soft, and then it stays. The next weight landed where she couldn't lift it. The community center opened its Through the Years display. Mrs. Keating asked for photos and I brought stacks. Not edited, not staged. Potlucks. School fairs. Yard sales. 4th of July when the sprinklers caught the light and turned it to lace. They pinned them up in neat rows. People stood and pointed, saying names the way you say grace. The kids tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, that's you." They didn't whisper. They shouted, "Happy." Sophie walked past the board with her polite smile and the eyes of someone hunting for a switch that did not exist. I didn't turn my head. I told the story behind each picture to any child who asked. The board stayed up for 3 months. No one took a single photo down. At school, my grandson's class did family heritage. He packed the album I'd made him, slid it into his backpack like a secret worth keeping. He set it on his teacher's desk and took out a page at a time. Me in the garden with him holding the watering can. Me at the sewing machine hemming a superhero cape. Me and my son years back, covered in cake batter from a day we tried to flip a pancake bigger than the pan. The teacher asked to scan a few for the bulletin board. They became big prints above little desks. At parent night, the teacher told Sophie, "You have such a strong family story." It was praise and it was a mirror. She smiled. Her jaw clenched once, small. She didn't argue with a wall. By spring, other people were doing the work for me. The neighbor across the street posted the lemonade stand picture. Me crouched beside the sign, holding a paintbrush while 6 small hands made it messier and better. The church choir posted the picnic. Me in the middle with a plate of cookies and a paper crown the kids made out of a program. The library posted reading day. Me on the rug, 3 little heads against my knees, eyes on the book. You can't crop out what you don't own. You can't edit what the town sees. I didn't try to beat her at her game. I changed the game. I stopped trying to be in her frames. I built 1,000 frames she couldn't touch. When she posted the shiny shots with cold edges, the comments under them carried their own truth. "Where's Mom?" an aunt asked, meaning me. "Love the one with all of you," a cousin replied, linking to a picture from the community center that showed my laugh in my granddaughter's hand. Summer brought the wedding. My niece, bright and kind, put me in charge of the photo list because you're the one who remembers who is who. I wrote simple lines: bride and groom with grandparents, bride and groom with cousins, whole family. It left no gaps. The photographer, a calm woman with a lens like a moon, herded us into place with soft hands. Sophie stood near the end of a row and then realized everyone was moving closer, pulling tight until there wasn't an end to be at. The shutter clicked and it sounded like relief. That picture went everywhere, on mantles, in wallets, in the wedding section of the paper. If you tried to cut me out, you'd lose 3 faces in the edge of the bouquet. Anyone with scissors could see how ridiculous that would look. In the fall, the town turned 125. The committee decided to make a book. They asked around for photos and my name came up again and again. I brought what I had and borrowed what I didn't. I wrote names in the margins in neat block letters and gave dates when people only had around Halloween to work with. When the book came out, my name sat in the acknowledgments as family historian. I didn't ask for it. I just done the work. Sophie bought a copy like everyone else and sat at the table turning pages. It is hard to argue with a printed thing. Ink is a kind of law. I kept my voice level and my pace slow. I sent a copy of the calendar to the school office for planning. I dropped off a USB stick to the church for archives. I put a small album together and mailed it to Sophie's mother with a note. Thought you'd like these. Her mother called me and cried. I didn't know about the Ferris wheel, she said. I didn't know about the pie. You do now, I said, and meant more than pictures. The near miss came in November. The PTA chair asked for volunteers to staff the photo booth at the fall fair. I signed up. Sophie rolled her eyes when she heard. She had planned to work the welcome table and be seen. The booth line wrapped around the gym twice. I kept the props moving and the kids laughing, checked the light, and learned the photographer's rhythm. 3 clicks per group, 1 wide, 1 silly, 1 close. At the end, the photographer asked if I wanted to be in a shot. I said yes, just one with my grandkids and whoever else wanted to pile in. 10 kids shoved into the frame. We took the silly one. My hat fell over my eyes. It's the one the PTA used on the flyer the next month to thank volunteers. It's the one my grandson taped above his bed. The next near miss came from Sophie herself. She organized a moms and kids mini-shoot at a studio. I heard about it secondhand, the way you hear about things you're not meant to attend. She booked it for a Saturday at 10. Friday at dinner, my granddaughter slid into my lap and whispered, "We're taking pictures tomorrow. Will you come?" I answered with a question. "Did your mom invite me?" She said, "It's for moms," she said, frowning like math. "You're my mom's mom." "I am," I said. "And I am your grandma." I did not show up. I did something else. I called the studio after hours and left a polite message. "Please make sure to get at least 1 wide family shot," I said. Grandparents love those. The photographer, a decent person, took 3 wide shots unprompted the next morning. When the proofs came back, Sophie ordered only the tight frames. But the studio posted 1 wide on their wall as they do to show what they can do. It faced the street. People saw it when they walked by to buy bread. People saw me. If you like stories like this, please subscribe, like an open notification bell for more real-life grandma stories. December came hard and sweet. We gathered for Christmas Eve. After dinner, the kids clattered around the tree. "Picture," someone said, and the old ritual rose. Sophie reached for her phone by habit. My grandson reached for mine. "Grandma gets everyone," he said. It wasn't a jab. It was trust. I set my camera on the mantle, set the timer, and walked into the middle like I had always belonged there. We breathed. We held still. The shutter blinked 3 times and made the small click that feels like a period. Later that night, I printed 4 and put them in the frames I'd bought. The silver plate read, "All of us." I wrapped them and put them by the door. I handed 1 to my son and 1 to Sophie and 1 to each of the kids for their rooms. They unwrapped them and faced the truth. It shone. It did not have sharp edges. In January, I took a step Sophie could never unstep. I went to the Historical Society and offered an idea. A rotating wall of family portraits from our town. "Call it Family Faces," I said. "Make it big. Let people submit. Let them write 1 line about what the picture means." The curator loved it. He hung the first round in March. Front and center was our Christmas Eve photo, 3 feet across, printed on matte paper that made skin look like skin. Beneath it, the line the kids had written together at the kitchen table. "We are better when we stand close." You could see it from the lobby. You could see it from the sidewalk at night. Sophie brought her book club to the society on a Thursday and walked past it with 10 women who all said, "Oh," at the same time. She did not stop. She did not speed up. She held herself like glass. I did not gloat. I did not wait for her to crack. I fed the display new pictures each season. Easter at the park. 4th of July sparklers. The school musical curtain call. I made sure we were in them without force. I put my face in the place where the work was. The bake table, the ticket table, the costume table, the table where the smallest hands sit and draw with markers that leak. If you want to be in the frame forever, you go to the table where the work is. There was a day in April when she tried one more cut. She posted a collage from the kids' soccer game. 3 tight shots, all sunshine and green. I had been there. I had sat on the bleachers and tied a shoelace and yelled, "Good try," until my throat was dry. I was not in her grid. I didn't tap her shoulder. I didn't type a comment. I posted the team photo the coach had sent, the one with 15 muddy knees and 2 coaches and me behind the water jug with both thumbs up like a fool. "Proud of all these kids," I wrote. Her collage got 5 hearts. The team photo got 60. In the comments, another mom wrote, "Mrs. M brought extra oranges for everyone. The truth is water. Defines its level." My son started to notice that the world didn't spin on 2 edges anymore. He sat at my table one night and said, "I didn't see it." I said, "You didn't want to." He looked at the Christmas frame. He looked at his hands. "I don't want to be the kind of man who edits a person out." "Then don't," I said and poured him coffee. He nodded. It was not an apology, not yet. It was a choice. In May, the school yearbook staff asked for community helpers' pictures. The advisor, a woman who had watched me with the reading rug, sent me a text. "Do you have any of you with the kids at the library?" Did I? I gave them 3. One landed on the dedication page. The caption read, "To the grandparents and neighbors who show up." Sophie saw it when she flipped through at the kitchen island. He touched the page like it might be hot. She set the book down carefully and didn't speak for a long time. Summer was busy. The neighborhood block party returned with a dunk tank and a DJ who played the same 5 songs the kids loved. I was on grill duty for the first hour and then at the craft table making paper crowns. A teenager with a wide camera took pictures for the town website. He sent me a link later. In half his shots, my hand was in the corner passing something useful. A napkin, a brush, a paper cup, a steadying palm on a small shoulder. When the site published the gallery, I was there over and over, not as the star, never as the missing piece, always as the hand. This is how you change a picture. You put your hand where it matters and keep it there long enough for someone with a camera to understand. In August, the family reunion returned to the park. I invited the same photographer who shot my niece's wedding. I paid her myself and told no one. She mingled, quiet, catching laughter and the small faces people make when they remember something good. She took 1 formal, because people like them, and 100 unposed frames where truth had its hair down. When the email link went out, people gasped and wailed and wrote, "Look at us," like they had found gold. Sophie forwarded the link to her parents and to 3 group chats. In 4 different kitchens, my face shone on 4 different screens, and there was nowhere to crop without severing joy. The last lock happened online, where Sophie had tried to keep her garden so tidy. The kids made a shared album in the cloud as a summer project. They put me in charge because Grandma knows which pictures are the good ones. That album fed 3 digital frames we gave as early gifts. 1 in my house, 1 in my son's, 1 in Sophie's parents' place. The frames updated on their own. A new photo appeared while you were making tea. You could not stop it without unplugging the whole thing and admitting what you were doing. Sophie didn't unplug it. He watched it. In a week, she sent 2 pictures to the album herself. Me and the kids at the farmer's market, and me falling into the lake because a dog had loved me too hard. She added the caption, "Grandma made us howl." I sat on my couch and stared at that line until the light changed in the room. It wasn't surrender. It was better. It was the smallest right thing at the right time. She slipped once more because we are human and slip. A cousin announced a ladies-only brunch and Sophie offered to host the group photo. She arranged women in a shining curve and then called out, "Mother's in front." I stayed seated at the back table with a toddler who had chosen me. Half the room paused. Someone said, "All the women who mother, please." It wasn't me who said it. It was Mrs. Hahn from choir. Chairs scraped. Arms opened. I walked in at the end of that curve and stood. Sophie lifted the phone. Her hand shook once and then was still. The picture printed the next day is the one they put in the newsletter. You can see the toddler's sticky hand on my skirt. You can see Sophie's shoulder touching mine. By fall, the fight had gone out of the room. Not because I'd won a point, because there was no point left to win. It had been replaced by a fact. I was part of the family, and the family had evidence. The kids had evidence. The church had evidence. The town had evidence. The pictures themselves, loose, unposed, ordinary, had settled the matter. I did one more thing for the long term. I boxed duplicates of everything and labeled them in plain words. Birthdays, school plays, holidays, every day. I made a simple guide and took it to the library. When I am old, I told the librarian, if no one remembers where to put these, keep one set here under family archives. She put a round stamp on my guide with the date. He put my name on a list. We'll keep them safe, she said. It is hard to cut someone out of a picture that lives in a public drawer. The last move came from Sophie, though I would not have believed it if you had told me so a year ago. She hosted a small dinner for her parents' anniversary and asked me to come early. When I arrived, the dining room table was cleared. On it sat her phone, a charger, and a shoebox of prints from the first years of her marriage. I want to make an album for them, she said, voice small. The kind that tells the story. I don't know how to do it right. I stood at the table and touched the lid of the box. We start with the truth, I said. We put in what happened. We leave room for the quiet parts. He handed me the first picture. It was her wedding veil fixed with tiny beads I had sewn. There I was on the edge of the frame, bent over, hands steady, face calm. He swallowed. You should be in the center of this one, she said. No, I said and smiled. I should be exactly where I was, holding the edge so it wouldn't slip. We built her parents' book together. We wrote names and dates. We put the messy ones in with the perfect ones. She did not crop a single thing. When we were done, she closed the cover and exhaled like someone finishing a hard climb. Thank you, she said. I nodded. It was not an apology for a year of edits. It was a door. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after the first calendar, we stood by the tree again. Picture, someone said. The kids fought over the timer button, then pressed it in chorus and ran back into the scrum. My son stood behind us, his hands on our shoulders, and said, closer. We stood closer. The click happened. It sounded the same as last year. It felt different. The frame had changed long before the shutter. Sophie once called me a bad influence. She tried to make it true by erasing me. I took that same word and did what I've always done with broken things. I put it on the bench and took it apart. I turned influence into what it really is. Showing, not shouting. Feeding, not starving. Holding still until the person with the scissors gets tired and sets them down. Teaching the children the names of things so they can say them out loud in rooms where anyone might try to make them small. She cut me out of pictures. So I made more pictures. She closed a frame. So I widened the wall. By the time she realized the wall had moved, it wasn't me holding it up. It was everyone else. The kids with their albums. The school with its bulletin. The church with its board. The town with its book. The librarian with a drawer. 100 hands on paper and mine among them, no heavier and no lighter, the right size at last. That is how you change the whole picture. You don't tear a single photo from a fridge. You fill every fridge in town. You don't break one frame. You build so many frames that no one can imagine the wall without you. And then you stand where you belong and let the camera do what cameras do best when pointed at truth. The shutter clicks. The light comes in. The image fixes. And there you are. When I walk through the community hall now, I slow down in front of the family faces wall. Not because I need to check if the photo is still there. I know it is. But because I like to see who's looking at it. Some people stop just long enough to smile at the scene. All of us in front of the Christmas tree, arms tangled, faces lit with the kind of glow you can't fake. Others linger, pointing out details. The matching scarves the kids wore, the plate of cookies on the coffee table, the way my granddaughter leans into me like she's done her whole life. That photo doesn't just live here. It's in the Historical Society's archives, the heritage book, on mantels in half the family's houses. It sits in places Sophie can't touch without breaking something much bigger than her own preferences. And that's the quiet satisfaction. She can't crop me anymore, not without cropping herself. The edges have been set, printed, framed, and shared until they're as permanent as the grain in the paper. I think about the first time I noticed I was missing from the photos. The hollow feeling like watching a play you were in only to see your part erased. Back then I took it as a judgment, a verdict on my place in the family. Now I see it as the starting point. If she hadn't cut me out, I might never have thought to widen the frame. The calendar still hangs in my kitchen, curling slightly at the corners. December's page, the Christmas Eve shot, looks back at me as I make tea. That same picture hangs in my granddaughter's room, taped to her mirror. She told me once she likes to see it before school because it feels like home. Home, I've learned, isn't just a roof or a mailing address. It's the place you take up space in people's memories. It's the proof that you were there, smiling, stirring, holding, helping, woven into the fabric of the days worth remembering. I don't need Sophie's approval to belong. I belong because I've lived the moments, because I've been there for scraped knees and burnt pies, for last-minute costumes and late-night talks. The pictures are just the evidence, the snapshots that match the truth. When I pass Sophie in the kitchen these days, she offers me coffee. Sometimes she shows me a picture on her phone without hesitation, my face right there beside hers. I don't ask what changed. I don't need to. The current runs one way now, toward inclusion, toward something resembling peace, and I'm not about to disturb it. If she thinks letting me back into the frame was her decision, that's fine. I know the truth. I put myself there piece by piece until the frame couldn't hold without me. Life is a series of pictures, some clear, some blurred, some framed on the wall, some forgotten in a drawer. The trick is making sure the ones that matter tell the story you want told. My story is simple. I was here. I am here. I will be here. And if anyone tries to crop me out again, they'll find the frame shifting around them instead, until they're the ones on the edges and I'm right where I've always belonged. If you like stories like this, please subscribe, like an open notification bell for more real-life grandma stories.